And we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Mixed Media Tuesday. It is demo time. Doesn't get better than demo time because we all get to play and hang out. Hope everybody's well. We're going to do what we usually do. We're going to welcome those of you who are watching live first. Thank you for joining me. And we are welcoming those who are watching on recording sometime down the line as well. I want to thank Janine, who is here, as always, doing the Janine thing that makes things so much better. She will be adding links, answering questions, probably serving snacks if I know Janine. So just get ready for a good time. It is Mixed Media Tuesday. What is Mixed Media Tuesday? If you're new here, it is the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. There is something that's going to happen live now on YouTube exclusively. And today it's a demo and it's part 2 of the demo. Don't be upset if you missed part 1. We will link you back to it so you can see the first half and what we created. So let's just spend a couple minutes saying hi, and then we're going to get to the business at hand. If you are here live, please, please, please leave a message. Let me know. And when I say a message, I mean a comment. Tell me that you're here. Let me know where you're from. And certainly if you're a newbie, I do need to know that because I want to welcome you fully. Hey, Sherry, great to see you. Cynthia, Linda, Michelle, Fifi, Paige, Yvonne, Annie, Joy, Nuneka, Pam, who is new here. Welcome, welcome, Pam. So happy to have you join me live. We are going to have a good time today. Hey, Sharona and Faith, welcome, welcome. Karen, Christy, Deanna, Stephanie, people from everywhere. Hey, Anne, Angela, Margaret, Sheila, Kakai, second live. You're a fan now. Thank you. Appreciate that. Hey, Sharon. Hey, Rhonda. Welcome, everybody. I am excited to be back. Where was I? I was down for the count. Those of you who have been following me know that I have been under the weather. I can't say that I'm 100%, but what I can say is whatever I got here, I'm glad I can't pass it to you on the internet because you do not want to get it. What is going around these days with this respiratory crud, the dreaded lurgy, as they say, you don't want to get it. Trust when I say that. But I'm happy to be mostly on the other side of that and definitely good enough to get the energy to begin to demo again, which I'm really excited about. Welcome, Christine, Charmaine. We got a good group today. So we are going to, and I promise when I say this now, we are going to go only another minute or two of welcomes, and then we're going to get right to the other camera and a demo. Janine has already put in some information about what we're doing today. Janine knows that I usually plan these demos last minute because I want to do what I want to do. That's how I create. And I always assume I'm going to get about 4 hours more work done than I do. So the long list of what I told her I was using, she shared. We'll see what I use. But once I flip the camera, I can tell you exactly where we were from demo part 1. And then move on to the continuation to demo part 2. And then we'll see if there ends up being a 3. And Janine mentions also that if you're not already a member of the Seth Apter Creative Community on Facebook, a free and very, very loving, supportive, and creative group, you are more than welcome to click on that link and ask to join. Just remember, there is a question. We want to make sure you're a human and not a bot. So you got to answer the question. It's a simple question. And then you're in and you can explore everything that that group has to offer. Janine also, the wonderful Janine, just put in the link to demo part 1, which was February 25th, which was 2 weeks ago. Last time I had a Mixed Media Tuesday where we demoed and created this. This is where we're at. This will be familiar to some of you and then new to others. But if you want to find out how I created the beginning of what I'm going to work on today, it is on YouTube and it's in the live section. It is not a recorded, it's a recording of a live, but it's in the live. Welcome, Jim and Jane. Great to see you. And we are looking at people from all over the world, which I absolutely love. Love, 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 love. All right, so let's flip. Let's flip the script. And instead of spending 25 minutes saying hello and doing announcements, we're just going to spend the last 5 minutes and 45 seconds. And then we're going to literally flip the switch. And we're going to start a demo. And anyone who's coming late because you assume I'm going to be babbling for a while, well, I'll be babbling, trust me. But surprise, we're already starting to work. So this is what we've created. Very briefly, it is on Smoothie, which is this amazing, incredibly gorgeous, smooth paper. It's a heavyweight cardstock from Paper Artsy. And what's on it, suffice it to say, it is a combination of Paper Artsy Fresco finished chalk acrylics, like that. There's some dye sprays, not necessarily that color. And there is some ink from an ink pad, and we used a stencil too. And so we used a brayer and a gel plate, all those kinds of things. But you can go back and we can move forward from here, but you can go back and watch the original part 1 if you want to see it. And just to answer a question that we have from the get-go, hey, Joy. Joy is talking about these new ink pads. If this doesn't look familiar to you size-wise, that will. We're going to talk about these more, but these are Shashihata. These are ink pads that I've coveted and finally was able to get in my shop. They are there now. We have 21 colors, and we even have what I'm calling a large Sumi, which is the black ink. And her question is, because they're oil-based, if you need to clean a stamp after using the oil-based ink pad before using the stamp on a water-based pad. You know what? I don't usually clean my stamps, but I actually have been cleaning them with the oil-based as much as I remember. I just use it simply with a baby wipe. One of the beautiful things about these pads is that they stay wet for quite a long time, although they dry permanently. So you do want to clean your stamps in between in a session if you feel like you're going to stamp multiple colors and don't want them to bleed, if that makes sense. Okay, but we'll talk more about that when we get to it. So where were we? Last thing we did, and we're going to continue with that because we're halfway through, is I used my zigzag stencil from Stencil Girl Products. Ooh, fits right there, to create this element here. And I want to create another element like that somewhere else on the paper. I want to do that because I want the consistency and the repetition. I want to do that because I want the balance. I want to do that because it needs more detail like that rather than all the hazy fuzzy. And I also want to do that because I have in mind a little sense of where I'm going, and where I'm going is I'm going to add that somewhere up there, and then I'm going to use some collage paper in between to bridge those two areas. So I know that in my head, that's where I'm kind of going. So what am I going to do? I'm going to lay my stencil down. I'm getting my gorgeous gel plate. I'm not using it as a gel plate. I'm just using it as a palette. And I'm going to start with some heavy cream because I realize that even though there's some light spots here, this is pretty dark. So I want to add some light tone to it for contrast. Don't need too much. And then I'm also going to be consistent with what I did before. And the way I got that tone, sort of blue hue, is with mixing some inky pool, which is translucent, with some of the opaque heavy cream. So we're going to do that again, just to at least start with something similar. I did it differently last time, but I'm actually going to mix it with a palette knife. And I really don't need too much. But as you can see, as I mix the colors, I'm getting a gorgeous third color. And this is a reminder to everybody that just because there are gorgeous paints right out of the bottle, it does not mean that you cannot take advantage of the mixing and the matching and creating something that is wholly your own. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just balance it out. I'm going to do it pretty evenly here. I'm just going to go right there. I'm going to get a cosmetic sponge. My preference is sponges. They're very dense, which I like. And the key, as I always say, with stenciling with acrylic paint is to make sure there's not much acrylic paint on your sponge. So what I'm doing is I'm pouncing it in the pool and then I'm pouncing it off. That way I'll get a pretty crisp edge, which may or may not be important to you, but for this particular design here, that's kind of what I'm going for. I want a pretty clear demarcation of the design, and you can see it right there. And I'm going to be pretty even in the sense that I've laid the stencil out and I'm stenciling every portion that overlaps with the paper. Normally, or very often, I don't do that. I am more random, but I really want this to be a consistent pattern. Okay. Now, you might notice the difference. What's the difference? Well, the difference is the color mix is a little different because it's from one week to the next, so it's not identical. And also, when you look closely here, if you weren't here last week, do you see there's some shading and shadows? There's some darker colors, there's some lighter colors, there's some colors that are a little offset. And that is really important to me. And what I mean by that is that when I build my stencil design over a very busy background, I want my stencil design to be equally busy. Otherwise, that just looks like I stenciled over it. Plus, it doesn't really stand out. So what I'm going to go ahead is replace my stencil, or try to. This should not be that hard. There we go. Maybe. There we go. Maybe. Okay, you think this would be easier, right? Okay. There we go, maybe. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead in with a different part of the sponge, and I'm going to go in with just a little bit of the heavy cream. Remember, I don't want it too wet, so I'm going to go in, take it off, pounce it off, and then I'm going to begin to pounce it through. This I'm doing much more randomly because I do not want this even. I want, as you can see down here, there's some areas that are lighter than other areas. There's some areas that are darker. I want that variety. Yeah, there we go. And the nice thing about a stencil is I can lift it up, I can check my work and see what I got. You can see where the lightness comes in there. I kind of like that. I think I need more contrast. So I am going a little heavier than maybe I did down there. All right, so you can already see that this is just more interesting. There's a little bit more variety, and actually it also serves to make this feel like it belongs more to the background rather than it's just sitting on top. And then I'm going to go back in and replace the stencil. And this is where I'm going to get, instead of my paint, I'm going to get my ink pad. So again, these are the Shashihata ink pads. They are permanent. They are oil-based. I have them in my shop in 21 colors. They are my current ink pad obsession. I do like the fact that they're permanent. I don't always use permanent ink pads, but I do like that. These also stay wet, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit longer. And what I mean by that is that the pad doesn't dry out, unlike most oil-based pads. I can't guarantee that forever, but that's what they say. That's what I've seen so far. And I'm really, really happy with everything that these pads bring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a different part of the sponge. I'm just going to dip it in. This is a pretty fresh ink pad, and I don't want it too dark. You can see it's quite dark. So I'm going to tap it off, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to pounce through in just some spots, just like I did with the white. So I have the variability of the dark and the light. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that in just a few spots. It doesn't take much, but you can absolutely see the variability you get. It's even more. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the stencil one more time. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing I did for part one of the demo. I'm going to bump the stencil a little bit. I'm going to move it. I'm going to move it down a tad and to the right, so that when I go in now, because it's offset, it's going to create a little bit of a shadow 3D effect, as if there was a light source. And it doesn't have to be dramatic, but in doing so, A, notice how it pops, B, notice how it kind of gets grounded, and C, notice how it's so much more 3D. So much more 3D. Now we have a question about the ink pads. I know of no way to reactivate ink pads once they dry out, save for re-inkers. I have not found from my source re-inkers for these pads. Now, that's not to say that I have not. Let me repeat that. I haven't done research, so I don't know if they exist. Maybe they just aren't sold by my supplier. I just know that they say wet for much longer than a traditional oil-based ink pad. I will do more research on that and see what I'm going to come up with. All right, so let's get back to this. And the one thing I'm going to say is I really want to adjust one thing. I just feel like it needs to have just a little bit more lightness. So I'm going to go in with just a touch more heavy cream, not mixed. It's probably too much. And I'm going to, in both spots, just bring in a little bit more white. Just a touch. And again, patting it on, but then patting it off, because I don't want it too bright. But I do want it brighter. Just a little bit brighter. Okay, so not dramatic, like I said, but there is a difference. And I do have to be aware that this ink, this does dry permanently, the ink from the ink pad, but it's still pretty fresh. And so it may be that as I'm pouncing my white paint into these spaces, that I'm actually going to just pull up some black and end up pouncing some gray. So I just want to be aware of that. So if that's the case, I can need it work more quickly. Add a little bit extra white. There we go. Yeah. I'm good with that. I am good with that. All right, a couple more questions about this ink pad. Christine wants to know if the ink pad is available in Europe. I'm going to say yes, but I honestly do not know where. These are very hard to find in the US. Took me a while to get a source. Maybe I would Google Shashi Hatta ink pad and Google Europe. It's probably somewhere. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere. They are very popular. I wish I could give you a little bit more info than that. Let's see. And I want to welcome those of you who joined me later. We're in the middle of part 2, the demo. Welcome to Zoe. Welcome to Debbie. Welcome to Julie. All right. Now, before I move on to some other things, I have that. And are we going to waste that? No. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll it out because it's still wet and totally usable. And then I am going to roll it on whatever I can get. There's not much, but I'm going to roll it onto this journal page. And this is how I start my journal pages. The journal just sits next to me and it's all the excess. And in fact, this was started in demo part 1 of this. All right. Now I'm going to move that aside and we're going to move on. All right, so this is kind of where we're at. And I knew today that I wanted to do some collage. So I pulled out some stuff for collage. I decided that this is, as a piece right now, is to me reading very dark. There is definitely contrast, but it's still reading dark. And that's always important to me to think about that as I go through it. And I say to you guys, think about contrast. So if you may see this as light, it doesn't matter what anyone else sees it. You want to look at your piece and make that decision. And then you want to work in your layers, dark light, dark light. So I did that with the paint. I did that with the stenciling, and now I want to do that with the collage. So normally I don't pre-plan what I'm going to use, but this is a demo, and I didn't want to spend an hour and a half dragging through papers. So basically I decided I was going to take some relatively light paper. And that's all I took. Really, you don't need much. You just need to have an idea and a commitment to it. These two elements here are really gorgeous, old, very old. They're way past vintage. They're antique. And then this is something I got a while back. It is a faux antique. It's a fantique. And it's, you know, it's just some thin paper. And then this is something that I used to have a lot. They're basically like washi sheets. And they're somewhat translucent, just like washi, but I actually like them on the background so that they don't disappear like that, but they add the contrast, the light contrast. So I am just, oh, and I brought out some of my washi tapes. I realized as I was looking for things to use that these tapes, no surprise since I made them, kind of have a lot of the similar palette. So I thought, you know what, let's do a little bit of similar palette, a little bit of maybe contrasting palette, and let's just see where that goes. And I'm going to just work the way I work, which is I don't really know what I'm doing. Like I don't have any plan, but one of the things I see is I see that really dirty line. This is an old, very old document. One of those documents on some form of like a lambskin or something from, I don't know, the 1700s. And on the fold, it's gotten so dirty. And I just love that. So I think I want to use that. So without overthinking, I'm just using my ruler, tear, and I don't know, there seems to be sort of this natural cut right there already, right? And I always honor pieces. So I kind of like the idea of utilizing that a pre-cut area. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pretty gently, you never know with antique vintage paper how easily it could tear. You know, and I'm thinking I'm going to do something like that. Again, I want to bridge that area, and I know there needs some contrast. There needs to be some contrast, and I think what I'm actually going to do is carefully, because it's already tearing, not loving the cut that I made, I'm going to cut this into 2 pieces and layer it. I'm just being really gentle with it. Yeah, this is something I'm gonna like better. All right, so again, I really don't like to overthink. So I am just gonna go ahead and I'm going to glue it. Some scratch paper here. I'm using a glue stick. Oh, great question. Anne wants to know, I have the hardest time using my antique and vintage papers. Is there a cure for that hesitation? Well, I'm going to give you the cure. Hey, everybody. So, yes, there is a cure. You do it. You just do it. You walk through the hesitation. You push yourself through the fear. You just do it. I learned a long time ago, and it's something that was a good lesson, is that when I'm making my art, I want to use the best. I used to be like many of us, and I still am to some degree, where I have these wonderful old vintage pages or these one of a kind found objects, and they're in the drawer, they're in the pile, they're in the box, they never get used. I barely see them. I want to save them, but they're just in the biggest pile. And one day I just had this monumental emotional connection that, like, why am I saving the stuff that's really good? That's what should be in my art. So from that moment forward, I always use the good stuff. And I prefer to use the good stuff because I just think it brings a history to my work and it makes everything I make more special and one of a kind. Also, it makes me feel like I'm putting the best into my work, and why wouldn't I want to do that? And it makes me feel like I am offering the person who is going to potentially buy my art, if I'm selling it, something that they can never, ever, ever, ever get again. Obviously, you can't make the same art twice if you're not doing prints. So yeah, so it's just using it. It's just like tearing from books and stuff like that. The first time you do it, if maybe it feels weird, maybe it feels wrong, I promise you, it gets better and better and better. And once you see the result, the feel, I don't photocopy, I don't scan, I only use the originals. And as someone mentioned in here, yes, you can always scan and photocopy. That's a way to save it. But like, you're never going to have anything feel like this. It's so true. It's so true. And then we see a lot of comments about that, which I kind of like. James said they recently got a couple documents from 1800s and used one right away in an altar book. Yeah, you go. And Rhonda says, got to use the good stuff. It makes your art better. And then Debbie makes a really good comment. For those of us of a certain age, and most of us are of a certain age, I always think, what will happen to it if I just save it? My kids would toss it. So use it, use it, use it. And I will also make mention, yes, Anne she's got the cure. I'm gonna do it, do it, do it. We're supporting you, Anne. Karen adds, let's see what happened to that. Original adds authentic value. Yes, 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 yes. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. And then Julie says you get used to knowing that you deserve the best. Yes, 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 yes. That being said, you don't have to do it to a fault. Like if literally you have one something from, I don't know, like, the year 1493, maybe you want to save that one. It doesn't have to be every single thing, but, make it 75% use, 25% save. So you have something else to use next time you create. Okay, so I got my glue stick. I use Avery. I use glue sticks a lot for collage. As long as you have a good brand, they work well. There's a couple other secrets to it. So I just tore this. I'm really not overthinking this. I don't have any particular design in mind other than I knew I wanted to use some lighter vintage pages in the center-ish of this piece that would bridge the two stencil pattern designs that I made at the top and the bottom. I'm covering up some of that stencil. We're good with that, right, my friends? And then I always say, if you want to use glue sticks, the best thing you can do is just use your finger to give some rub. It activates, it heats the glue, and the pressure keeps it working better. And then I'm gonna, the layer, got a layer. I'm loving this layer. Really want that right there. So I'm just gonna go ahead, once again, not overthink it. I'm really not auditioning it much. I placed it down there, kind of had an intuition where I wanted it. Like I said before, I don't know where I'm going with this after. I kind of have a few pieces that I plan on using because I pulled them for the demo. But normally I would not even have that. I think I'm gonna go right to the edge. Go right to the edge. Let's go to the edge, my friends. Okay. And again, I'm gonna remember, let's give some pressure. Okay, and it happens that this is sort of centered. I don't usually do that. I like it to be a little bit off, but that's how I built it. It wasn't conscious. I just feel like I want to highlight that. It is somewhat smack in the center, but that may shift. And then I'm going to just use some of these other elements. Just going to see what we get. So I'm going to go ahead with this. Remember, this was that washi sheet. And washi tape, let's all remember, is repositionable. And what does that mean? It means it lifts off. So I could just glue this on, but I need to be more cautious about that because this is on a backing paper and this will just lift off. So I am going to go ahead. I'm going to be very aware that if I want it to stay, I do need to use some glue. And again, with a glue stick for something this size, which is kind of like a washi strip that you get from a roll, that size, glue sticks tend to be perfectly sized for those. I really think that that's not just a coincidence. Okay. I like this one for lots of reasons. One, I just love the randomness of the dots. There is really no green, kind of grass green in this. There is some bluish, greenish tones. And I like that because it's just a little contrasting. I think I'm just gonna, oh yeah, so, okay, this was totally not on purpose, but I just noticed that This is sized exactly the length of that element that I cut. But that almost feels a little bit too plan. So I'm going to move that over like that. And I'm going to use my glue stick. And I'm going to place that there. Bring that around. Now, I also want to make mention, it's always good to be aware of what you're using. So this old parchment skin kind of paper, that's going to take whatever I put over it, if I put something wet over it, differently than the washi. So be aware of that. I actually really like that, but you are going to definitely, if you do something right here with wet, you're definitely going to get a different effect. There's a question about why didn't I just use it peeled off? That's a good question, Jane. So this is washi, a washi sheet. So washi sheet is translucent. So you can see that if I have it on this very white backing paper, it is much lighter than if I put it, for example, on this pink. The pink will show through. And I wanted some contrast here. I did not want this just to fade out. You can see it's much more faded. I really wanted it on a little white bright so that I have that contrast of this whole area in the center being a pop off this background. There's also a question about what is this washi sheet. So I have these in my shop. I want to say pre-pandemic, 5 or 6 years ago. They were these just amazing full sheets, probably about that size of washi. You know, they have a backing, a lift. I will say that when I first got them, I thought the designs as well as the concept was so phenomenal that you didn't just have washi like this. You could have larger segments. You could die cut it. You could do all that. But I will tell you that they were underwhelming in terms of sales. So I absolutely never followed up and brought them back into my shop. But I still have little bits and pieces left, which I love. All right, so then I have this amazing envelope, 1945. It's to Miss Belly Lanning in Phoenix, Arizona. No zip, airmail from Santa Ana, California. Santa Ana. And it's just so friggin' beautiful. But I absolutely love this tone. Absolutely love this tone. And I want to use that. And again, okay, so this is an original. This is, you know, this is worth something, not from a perspective of money. It's worth something from like its history. Imagine what was written in here. And so, you know, you may be like, oh, I don't want to use it, or it's an envelope. I have to use it as an envelope. Oh, use it. Just use it. So I'm just going to go ahead and, again, without thinking too much, I'm going to just tear it. When you think of things as precious, it holds yourself back from being free to use them comfortably. And what ends up happening is you become so self-aware. Oh my God, it's such an important piece. I'm only using it once. What if I ruin it? That you just never do your best creatively. So let's just see. I'm not sure what I want to do here. I think I want to do that. Let's just do that. And yeah, I'm not going to do that and have that be yeah, kind of like I kind of like that coming up from the bottom. See that little mark? So let's again, and look how amazing the back is too. I mean, that almost echoes that, which is really cool. But I'm wedded to the front. The front will be used. All right, and you can also see, not everybody does this. I'm very edge aware. So for me, you can see I'm working from edge to edge. I am also using kind of a sense of overlap. There's some linearity there, some stepwise, which to me kind of echo some of the steps that you see in this. So I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, so what am I going to do? What am I going to do first? I'm just going to do something small and silly. I'm just going to, using a Stabilo awl, which is my favorite mark maker pencil. It works on all surfaces. That's why it's called an awl. It says here paper, glass, plastic, metal. It is water soluble. You can smudge it. And I'm going to actually, you see how I did the stenciling first? So I've kind of cut off the design of the stencil with the collage, which is totally fine. But I feel like it's going to be more interesting if I extend that there. Do you see what I did there? So simple. So I used the design from the stencil to guide me to just finish it over the collage. So why did I do that? I did that for a few reasons. One, because it just felt like too much like, oh, he stenciled and then he put a piece of paper over the stenciling and that cut off the stencil. So I didn't like that. And secondly, I love to get my own hand in anything and everything I do, even if it's as simple as just doing what I'm doing, extending a design from a stencil or a stamp. And then mostly, I just feel like that simple thing right there, what that did was it served to take this whole strip of stuff that's very separate and it begins to integrate it into the background. And you're going to see that over here as well. We're going to do it maybe a little bit more strongly. And again, I'm smudging. That's one of the things I love about this Stabilo awl. And it doesn't matter to me that the color that I'm using mostly in the stencil is sort of a grayish blue. Like I'm okay with using just the black. And then I'm going to kind of, again, sort of freehand it. And add more of that design. It's such a simple thing to do, but I just think it adds a ton to the design. Yeah, and that's all I'm going to do. I mean, that is ridiculously simple. All right, so what am I going to do now? All right, I am going to do a couple things. I want to integrate this a little bit better, sort of big on the integration. I just love the notion that everything feels like it belongs together. It's not about collage being the last layer and it just looks like you stuck something on top. So how do I do that? I do that in so many different ways. Let's actually, I have one of the Shashahitas right here. This is a new one. It hasn't even been opened, but it's sitting here. And very often when I have something sitting in front of me, it's asking to be used. So I'm going to go ahead and that color, you know, let's see, not exactly that tone, but it doesn't have to match. And I have a stencil here that interestingly, I wasn't going to use as a stencil. This is one of my stencils. It's called Etched, and it's a 4x4. And I looked at it one day, and I thought, oh my God, I love this stencil. Like, not, well, I love the stencil, but what I really love is I love how it was colored. And so you can see it's been cut, and basically I've been cutting it as collage material. So, you know, just maybe that was my plan. I was going to get a pair of scissors and cut it. But when I saw this color here and I saw the stencil, I thought, no, this is the way I'm going to start integrating a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to tap on and then sort of tap off. And I'm going to just do a little bit. You don't need much. Trust me when I say you don't need much. But you do need more than that. Okay, so do you see how it's just adding a little bit of some design element? And doing so is going to begin to do that thing that I was saying earlier, how I like that if I'm using something that's plain, my example before was the stenciling, and I went ahead and then added it to a very busy background, it's going to feel so kind of naked. And so I really want to, looking for some other colors here. I really want to add some layers so this feels more. Let's just see what we got here color-wise. That might work. More or equally complex. And then you know what? Maybe I will cut this up and use it anyway, since that was my original notion. No, too green. This one's blue-green. This one's dew, D-E-W, and this one's light blue. This one's peony, in case you want the colors. Ooh, very greeny. Yeah, I think I want that one. Yeah, the original one. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm using the same stencil. I'm going to move it in some different places. I like to use multiple colors with the same stencil design and go over it so it begins to give a sense of depth and just more interest. And it feels a little bit more 3D and just more interesting. All right, so you see, you just see how it's just slowly building up the layers. I always say more is more, but then I add more is more little by little. It's not about throwing everything on all at once. Let's see. I don't know. I'm not sure what I want to do with this yet. Do I want to do something off the... Oh, okay. So here's something. Remember what I said about this whole notion of, you know, size. Like if something's sitting here, it's meant to be used. If it's the exact same size as this element, it's meant to be used with that element. So I just layered this on from the corner. And I love the fact that it literally ends. Do you see where it ends? It ends at the end of that. So that's just sort of telling me that that's where it needs to go. I don't know if that makes any sense. It probably does to you guys because we're all in this together. So I'm just kind of cutting loosely, but I want some of these elements to extend off because that's just more interesting. Yeah. And I think I'm just going to stick that literally right there. Do you see that there? Kind of cool, right? I'm going to use a glue stick. Ooh, look at the colors on the other side. That's nice too, but I'm already wetted. to my decision. When you start second guessing, that's going down a road it's sometimes hard to recover from. So my intuition was what it was, and I'm owning it and not second guessing it. All right, so now if you guys were not here, well, that would be a shame. But if you weren't watching this and you just saw this, you might not even know that that was anything but paint. I mean, it really blends well. I like that. And in fact, I know I'm doing a little bit of something that it's looking vaguely repetitive, but I kind of like that right there. Yeah, vaguely repetitive, you know, because I'm using the same thing, that and that and that and this, but I don't know, I kind of like that. I'm just going to figure this one out. I'm going to just kind of cut and see where that's left. You can also see I often work from the edge. I'm just big on going from a corner or from an edge. Let's flip this over. No, I think I'm going to just, I am playing a little bit, clearly. I kind of like that right there in the middle. Yeah, I kind of like that. You know, I do like it down here. I think that's a nice balance, but I don't think it shows. Karen also says vertical, so she knows, but I just like that I can now see through that. And it, you know, it's off the edge. It doesn't have to go off the corner. And that is the winner. Or when I say winner, I mean, that's been decided. Yeah, that's good. Okay, we got that. We got that. And I don't know. You know me in threes. I sort of feel like there should be something somewhere else. Yeah, just feeling a little bit of something, something. So I'm going to do that. Do that. And I'm just going to place that right there. You guys with me on that? Queen Pam, yes, I cut up the stencil. So this is one of my stencils from Stencil Girl. It's called Etched. It is, now I have to decide which way it goes. It is originally 4x4. And what I was saying earlier was I just love the coloration from, because I don't clean my stencils, that I just pulled it out of the rotation, decided I was going to use it for collage. Then when I pulled it out today, the first thing I was like, well, actually, I think I want to use it as a stencil. And then I'm like, but I still want to use it as collage. So now I have those three elements in there. And I think it looks good. And I think it kind of guides the eye around. And I love sort of the strength of that over the very light tone underneath. It feels sort of burnt and rusty, a little bit more southwestern. Yes. All right, so where are we now? We're checking in on the time, and we're going to make some choices and decisions. And then we're going to probably move on to part 3. This might be the piece that never ends, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with. The only piece that I haven't used yet from this, the 4 pieces I grabbed, was this element right here. Kind of feel like maybe I should use it. I'm not sure. I'm kind of just going to play a little bit. Just going to try something. Try something right there. I'm going to here down. Let's see if maybe a little bit of, yeah, I think we need a little bit more contrast and brightness there. So I am going to let's do that. I think I'm going to glue that right there. Nope. I'm going to glue that right there. Yep. Just feeling that. I like the base. I like that it's on a base. It's kind of anchored. It gives some contrast. It brings in a little bit of color, a little bit of brightness. Okay, and I'm using the glue stick, so I'm going to give some pressure. And then I'm going to go back to my friend right there. And I'm going to go back to some of these colors I used, and I'm going to stencil the two colors I used before over that area so that it doesn't feel quite as disconnected. Yeah, this is good. This is getting there. Now, I am needing to wind down, but what I am feeling is that I want to add some softer details. So if you look at this stencil, while it does have some curve in it, it's mostly line. If you look at this stencil, these two stencils, zigzag and etched, what's left of it, they're mostly linear, although they have some curve. And I really, really, really like those green marks. So I could go ahead and I could mark it by hand. I want to add some curve. But you know what? I just got some stuff. And whenever I get some stuff, I like using new stuff. So I'm going to take the last bit of part 2 of this mega demo, which may go on for decades. I had my washi tape. I may come back to that. But I have these amazing rub-ons. You guys know rub-ons? I just love rub-ons. And I seem to love them more than a lot of people, but these are from Alexander Renke, who is a watercolor artist from Germany, and over the years has become a good friend of mine. I see her at the shows in Germany, and I absolutely adore her, and I love her style. So she just came out with what I think are really special, and they are in the shop, shockingly, but they're sort of, I call them sort of color shifting ombre. So you can see, like, this one is Miracle, and it comes in 4 colorways. These are just 2 of them. This one is the pink violet. This one is green blue, but you can see it just shifts. The tones just shift. This one's called this is Magic as opposed to Miracle. The tones just shift, which I think is so cool. And there's 3 rub-ons in each one. So let me just show you the designs. I am aiming, at least initially, for these kind of splatty circles. And yes, I could make those splatty circles myself with ink, with paint, but you know, I want to use everything, and I absolutely adore these rub-ons. So again, this one's Miracle. So you get these kind of color swatch tags. You get the hearts, and you get the paint tubes, which are amazing. And then the other one, the one that's called Magic, this is yellow, orange, red. Magic, you get this ombre color shifting letters and numbers. You get those dots, splatty dots. You get the paint brushes and also even splattier paint marks. They're just so cool. So I'm going to take red, beige, and black, and yellow, orange, red, and I'm going to just use those here. So let's just, very randomly, I'm going to just do that. Do you see where it went? I mean, again, I could do my own splats. I don't need to be using rub-ons, but why not? I just seriously love rub-ons. I think they're just amazing. I really do. I love the designs of these in particular, but I just think they add something just so beautiful. And we're going to do some layering here. It's beautiful and, whoops, and just different. So you can kind of see the three. They're sort of layered there now. And I don't want to just do one over there. And I'm being very quick with it, so they're a little bit imperfect. Just adding that softness, that curve. And again, when you're using multiple colors, it's nice to use multiple colors as an overlap. I'm doing this quickly, so as a way not to overthink. I don't want too many of them. No, I don't want them by the thousands, because then it starts looking a little bit contrived. But the hundreds are fine. Just that little detail right there, that nice contrast of the color. Oh yeah, we need some shift right there. And of course, 3 is such a, good number. Yeah. And let's just go with one random down there. I mean, I could just do this for days. And you may not want to watch me just put rub-ons on for days. Although, maybe that's okay. All right, so I am going to say that we spent just shy of an hour on the demo itself. And this is what we have. And I think if you go back to the videotape and you see where it began, well, certainly on demo number 1, and maybe Janine, you can put the link in once again for demo number 1. And then where we began on demo number 2. And I just want to show you just a few things, these sort of randomness. I just love that sort of pinkish tone that pops in there. It's these random elements. I love the contrast of that bright white. Absolutely adore that. That feels like there's a fire going on underneath there. I do like the ones that I did by hand just to kind of connect it. And then the addition of that stencil and then that stencil piece. There's 3 of them. And I do like that. And what you might or might not have noticed is by bringing in some of the yellow tinged rub-ons, I'm kind of pulling that honey amber color. And that may become more of a feature as I work through demo part number 3. All right, let us go to the front-facing camera. And let's just show you from far away. Obviously, this is strongly contrasted with that. So we're going to be working in part 3 to kind of fill that in. I have some ideas already, but you can kind of see what we got and the level of detail. And again, because this was so dark, I really wanted that light central focus. Nanette says, love that. Santa reminds you of an old library date 2 card. Phenomenal. And thank you guys for this positive reaction you're getting here. You're giving. This was fun. This was really fun. Now, we're going to wind down, but for the few of you, well, pretty much everybody, it seems like people stuck when I demo, people stick. When I do other kinds of things, people come and go, but people seem to really like, not my demos in general, but just demos in general. So I appreciate you sticking and staying. Excuse me. Still working my way through whatever this crud is. I just want to remind everybody or inform everybody that I am so friggin' fortunate because I get to do what I get to do. And one of the things that I get to do is leave next week for Australia. I will be in Australia for near a month, and I will be teaching at 3 different venues and doing some traveling on my own and bringing you Australia via social media. But what that also means is that it's going to be a little while before I can get back to a Mixed Media Tuesday, which means that demo part 3, excuse me, you're going to have to wait a bit of time. That being said, I hope it'll be worth the wait. I am not going to work on this. Excuse me. Again, this is probably not so pretty, but the reality of whatever's going around, and this is me healthy compared to what I was very recently. But I think what this is saying is that, excuse me, it is time to sign off. So I'm going to see you guys off and on the internet. I want to thank you so much for being here this week and watching the demo, for all your great comments, and a big thank you to Janine. If you want to see part 1, it's on YouTube in the live section. This will be on YouTube. You can check it out. And thanks so very much for all the love. Be well, everybody. We'll talk soon. Bye.